Hello everyone, good evening. I hope you're having a great day. And let me just check the technical requirements and then we can continue with the lesson. Okay. I think there wouldn't be any problems. Okay, so today we're going to talk about formal words and expressions in English, and there are some alternatives. Normally, in our daily lives, we use daily speaking and informal speaking. And if you work at an office or any kind of company, I'm sure that you will need these kind of expressions and words, and we will see some transitioning words, and also we will see some verbs that we use while speaking business English. And actually those will be actually those you can find them really difficult, but those are actually not so confusing if you create some examples as in sentences as well. And before we start, I want you to ask questions if you don't understand the meanings or other things. And I want you to participate the lesson using chat box in here. Okay. All right, then let's continue. So what are formal words and informal words? What is the meaning? What is formal English and what is informal English? Let's talk about that first of all. So we use formal English when writing essays for school, cover letters, or to apply for jobs. It could be about emails and letters at work, like business stuff, let's say. And okay, let me just highlight that area so we can continue. All right. And okay, so what is informal English? What is informal speaking? We use it with friends. It is our daily speaking. We use them with friends, children, and relatives. Like, it is our daily, most commonly used verbs, as we know. Okay, so if everything is quite clear, we can continue. All right. In this lesson, we won't be discussing so much details as we did in the last part, because in the last lesson we've talked about business emails and how should we write emails in a formal language. But in this lesson, we will mostly speak about the let's say not syntax, but just the word form of the words. Okay, so we have informal and formal verbs in here. I think you know most of these, but I'm sure that you're not using them in your business life, because sometimes even I can't remember these words quite well. So when we want to say sorry, we're not saying I'm sorry in a company or at an office. We mostly say apologize. I apologize. So there's a difference between using these. So we can say I'm sorry with the amizar in here, but apologizing is a formal verb by itself, so it is a verb. So I'm not using amizar, I only just say I apologize. And rather than I, they mostly use we apologize, because we're a company. Or yeah, okay, there are some people in here. Hello. Can you move? Came to the right. What's that? Can you move? Came to the right. There's a problem. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. You want me to come to the right. But I think the slide is looking well right now. Okay, can you explain the question, please, Ruchan? Because I'm not so sure I understand. Okay, and we can continue. So we're not saying emiza in here, because apologizing is a verb by itself. And we apologize because we're a company or we are a society. I'm not only talking about myself, I'm only talking about ourselves. So we can say we apologize. for any inconvenience caused. As you can see here, in formal English, we're mostly using passive voice because you're not talking about you, you're talking about something as presenting a company. So we're mostly using passive voice, and it is the this grammar topic in Turkish. So yeah, okay. Can you move camera to the right? Okay. I think it's okay now. It should be okay. Let me just check. Okay. I think the camera is okay. So let's continue. All right. And what do you know the meaning of inconvenience? Without using Turkish, can you explain these words? So inconvenience is a discomfort, we can say. Discomfort. That is the synonym that we can use. And if you have any other alternatives, I will be pleased to hear it from you as well. Okay, so we can say go against. This is informal. And in formal English, we can say oppose. The proposed new testing system, this is all of this, means does the same thing with Ali, Ayşe, because this is my subject. The proposed new testing system, this is my subject, has been vigorously opposed by teachers. Again, I'm using passive, opposed, ed, with by, because this will be much more accurate when we speak in business English. Okay, so let's highlight these. Go against and oppose means not agreeing on something, but you're doing this very, how can I say, you're not doing this in a kind way. You're actually, how can I say, expressing your ideas with anger, maybe, because not agreeing means that you are comfortable with it but you do not agree, but going against something is like covering your ideas with a strong let's say strong words and strong meanings. That would be a better explanation. And yeah, I think these two words are great. Say sorry, informal, go against, informal, and in formal English we can say apologize and oppose. Let's continue with the next slide. Okay, so as we all know, we're using increase and decrease for going up and going down. By going up, I'm not meaning physically going up, but developing something, or maybe we're talking about an amount, an entity. It could be about money, it could be about non physical things as well. So, incidents of armed robbery have increased over the last few years. I'm giving a time period over the last few years, maybe since last year, since 2020. Maybe we can give some examples like that. But I'm using again a formal word, increased. Let's highlight that as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can always type your questions in the chat box, and I'm here to answer them. All right. And the opposite meaning, go down, go up, it is decrease. Our share of the market has decreased sharply this year. And sharply, I mean, like we know a knife. Think about a knife or a scissor. It is sharp. So we're same thing in Turkish. We are using sharply because it wasn't expected. So it was a surprise this year, maybe. Decreased sharply this year. There is a great gap between last year and this year, so we can use sharply as an adverb in here as well. So let's highlight these as well. Okay. And by share, I'm not talking about sharing a Facebook post, as you know. I'm talking about my share, my rights as an income or as money. in this year's profit. We can say it is my part and it is my share, our share. So it's the same thing. It's not about sharing something. It's not a verb in here. Okay. So we said go up, informal, go down, informal. Instead, we can say increase and decrease. By the way, these words are not only for formal language. If you use these words in your daily speaking as well, not all the time, but sometimes if you use these as well, they will help you a lot, and you will see that your level of speaking will increase, and people also can see the difference if you use formal words instead of informal daily speaking. All right, so let's continue. And in here we have rack up and make up. Those are informal. So we can say accumulate and fabricate for formal verbs. I'm sure that these will sound strange to you. Like I said, I'm not always using them as well because we can't remember all of them. And okay, as people accumulate more wealth, they tend to spend a greater proportion of their incomes. So there are really high number of formal words in here. So let's say accumulate. More wealth, more accumulating more wealth means becoming more and more rich. So we can say becoming more rich. So accumulating means taking the wealth, or how can I say? Yeah, we can say receiving money, becoming, gaining. So accumulate means rack up, and gain. So they tend to spend a greater proportion of their incomes. Tend to means, oops, I'm sorry. Tend to also means, I don't know how to explain this in English, let me just think. But in Turkish, we can say it is this phrase in Turkish, tend to. So we can say their habits are changing, habits are evolving. Tend to means your habits are evolving in a different way. So we can say that as well. All right. And greater proportion of their incomes. There are lots of formal words, but I'm only focusing on the highlighted parts because those will be the most important. If you have any other questions, you can always ask. Okay, so what is make up or fabricate? He claims that the police fabricated evidence against him. Fabricate in here means planning something bad for someone, or we can say how can I say this? Let's say you're not guilty, but people claim that you're guilty and they are just trying to prove it. So we can say claim, it means like iddia etmek in Turkish. He claims that the police fabricated evidence against him. These are great phrases that you can use. Fabricate, against, claim. And if you don't know the meanings, you can always use an online dictionary and see the example sentences as well. Okay, alright. So we said informal, rack up, make up. Informal words mostly include phrasal verbs. We know the phrasal verbs. Do you remember them? We can say make, get, have, take, blah blah blah. If we use these verbs, to make a verb of the nouns, these will be mostly informal and daily speaking because those are phrasal verbs. But rather, we should use formal words. They are the same thing, they're alternatives of each other. So we can use formal one instead of using informal one. So phrasal verbs mostly are about informal verbs like rock up, make up, down, up, down, on, in. Those are the making, those are the opponents of phrasal verbs. All right. So let's continue. we can say leave out, point out. As you can see, out, in, lots of phrasal verbs. And those are informal, so let's make them formal. Omit and indicate. The princess tour conveniently omitted the most deprived areas of the city. Conveniently left out. I also make it a passive or a past simple, let's say. The princess tour conveniently left out. Left out, it means like not including. Let's say not including something. Omitted the most deprived areas of the city, the most important areas of the city. And yeah, we can say point out or indicate. Exploratory investigations have indicated large amounts of oil below the seabed. There are lots of words that maybe you don't know, but like I said, you can use always a dictionary or just try to use some alternatives, but don't translate in your mind. Try to understand the context, just the meaning. Okay, so indicate means like specify, pointing out, specify, and highlighting. Maybe we can also give that as a synonym or the near meaning. Exploratory investigations have indicated, pointed out, highlighted large amounts of oil below the seabed. They have found some oil and in this area, and this is important. I'm pointing out, I'm indicating. This is the meaning of it. Okay. All right, next slide. We're coming to the very end. Start, keep. Those will be the family words for you, I'm sure. But other than saying start, we can say commence, and it will sound much more formal, believe me. We will commence building work in August of next year. So in basic English, I can say we will start building in August next year. We can say, but in here I'm also using of next year and building work. I'm not only say we will build something, because those will be A2 or B1 level of English, but in here I'm using lots of different alternatives to sound more professional and sound more native. So we will commence, it means start. And keep, keeping something. It's like, yeah, it's the same meaning with keep, keeping something, or retaining. He managed to retain his dignity. Dignity means, let's say, it is being proud. Yeah. His dignity throughout the performance. Dignity, and he managed to keep, he succeeded, let's say manage and succeed. He succeeded, he was successful to, how can I say, keep his proud throughout the performance. We can also give that example as well. Okay. All right. So if you don't have any questions, let's continue because we don't have much time. Okay, this is a long sentence. Let's talk about transitions. So transition means connecting two sentences in English. So we can say anyways, and in normal English, not normal, in general English and daily English, I'm talking about something, but then I want to talk about something else. So I can say anyways, like forget about it, anyways. Yeah. And in formal English, we're saying nevertheless. Nevertheless. Their team hadn't lost the game the entire season. They were always successful. Nevertheless, we beat them by a huge margin last night. So I can say anyways to talk about something else. This is the first meaning. And also, I can give this meaning in Turkish. Yeah. Nevertheless, or we can say yine de in Turkish, we beat them. So I'm talking about a team and they were really successful. They didn't lost a single game in the entire season, but nevertheless, we beat them by a huge margin last night. So this is the meaning that I can provide for you. And I can also say also, and if I want to add something, if I want to continue my sentences, I can use this transition also. But this is not formal, so this is an informal word. So we can say in addition or additionally. It's actually coming from the verb of add. Add. And yeah, in addition, additionally, I'm adding something. So additionally, we request a deposit of $200 in advance. So additionally, also, we want this. I want you to add $200 of a deposit in advance. In advance means right now, beforehand. Yeah. In advance also means beforehand. We can also use this phrase as well. Can we say nevertheless, even though? Yeah, we can say that. Even though, although, those are the great examples of saying anyways and nevertheless. But we can't use even though, although in formal English. Those are not formal. Informal, we can only say nevertheless, or maybe you can say instead, despite the fact that, despite of this, despite the fact that. Those are also other alternatives of this. So thank you for your question. All right, so let's continue. Okay, let's continue with the transitions. We can say to sum up. I'm summarizing something, I'm keeping it short, and I'm giving the meaning. To sum up, this is informal, but in a meeting, let's say, you can use formal words as in conclusion. So we can also say to conclude. It's actually coming from this word. Conclude means ending or finishing something, but I'm giving a meaning. It's not like finish, it's done. I'm giving the meaning. Yeah. Okay, so in conclusion, he wished us all well and asked us to be remembered by the other members of our community. I'm not going to translate or explain all of these sentences, but I want you to focus on the position where I'm using these transitions. I'm sorry, what's happening? Yeah. In conclusion, like I told you, it is used with, let's say, by connecting two sentences. So in conclusion, I talked about something, so I want to conclude right now. I want to finish my conversation, so I'm using in conclusion in a meeting, maybe. We can say, all right, it's all right, it's not a problem, it's good. Those are daily English. But in formal, we can say acceptable. So it's again coming from the word accept, to accept something, and it is acceptable. I am making it an adjective by using the suffix. This is my suffix. Acceptable or dependable, doable. There are lots of words that we can create. So what is an acceptable level of radiation? So this is my example sentence. I'm not saying all right in here, but I can say what is a good level and enough explanation, maybe we can say. But in here I'm not saying, especially while using formal words, I'm not saying all right, that sounds good, or it's good. I'm saying acceptable. It is acceptable. This contract is acceptable, or it's not acceptable. It's not all right, it's not good. So we can use these two phrases as well. And hello, hi, Hilal, welcome. Thank you for your participation, and let's continue. Actually, we are out of time right now, but we have 2 more slides, so let's continue. Okay, I can also use so, and this is not formal, like I said, and instead I can say therefore or thus. We were unable to get funding, and therefore I also used it in here. We had to abandon the project. Abandon means, let's say, giving up. We had to give up of the project, but I'm not saying giving up because this is also a formal word that we can use. Abandon means giving up, or let's say leaving leaving something or someone. Yeah, and therefore I'm not using and so at the same time. Instead, I could have said we were unable to get funding, so we had to abandon the project. But if I want to use therefore or thus, I can use and. This is important as well. Yeah. In the end, or we can say finally. Finally is also formal usage. But most of the time, those are two of them actually are acceptable. You can use them alternatively, but this is the meaning. Finally, I would like to thank everyone for coming this evening. This is also another example. Finally, in the end, but those are not alternative in here, because in the end means that you will talk about something. In the end, we had a great night, maybe. In the end, we had a great evening, let's say. So, but I can't say finally, I can't say in the end instead of finally in here. Because if I say in the end, I would like to thank everyone for coming this evening, it's like a conclusion in here. If I use finally in this part, it sounds like a conclusion, it sounds like a thank, or it sounds like, how can I say? Summarize, let's say. So those would be confusing, so be careful about them. Okay. And the last slide we can say about transitions is anyway and notwithstanding. So anyway and anyways is different. Be careful about that. In the meantime, in the interim, those are also formal and informal alternatives of each other. Notwithstanding, this is an old usage of English. Like most of the time, you will see this in lawsuits, or let's say writing English, but speaking is not so, it's not so common to use that. Notwithstanding some members' objections, I think we must go ahead with the plan. So as you can see, anyways and anyway is different. So I can't use them alternatively, be careful. And last part, in the meantime, in the interim. Professor has a meeting, you can wait in the lobby in the interim. And you can say in the meantime, or you can wait in the lobby, this is also acceptable. So yeah, be careful about the meanings while using formal verbs, because those are also important. And okay, I think that's all for tonight. Thank you for your participation, and see you next week. And also, don't forget to check out our social media accounts, because you will see some great tips and tricks, mostly about, let's say, phrases or sentences, but not all speaking. And don't forget to check out our website, flalingo.com, and you can make a reservation with Turkish teachers as well, if you like, or you can make a reservation and receive an online class with native teachers as well. Yeah, that was a great lesson. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Good night.